overview of set 1. If you've not checked out the generic overview of these warm-ups video, I would encourage you to do that. It's got a lot of great information and detail about each section of these sets. So in set 1, we start with our history. We're looking at Duke Ellington, and we're going to be studying C-Jam Blues, and we want the students to name another song composed by Duke Ellington. So doing a little research of some other great songs that he's composed. There are a ton to choose from, and putting them here in their text box. Maybe they can find some recordings to share with the class and talk about those. We have the recording of this set, which is C-Jam Blues by Ellington, and we want the students giving level appropriate descriptions of what they hear. So maybe a beginner student is talking about the form and some solos that they hear, while another student is talking about the comping that they hear specifically happening behind a solo, or the way the bass line is being walked. So something appropriate to what they are ready for. And then our winds are going to be doing a long tone hinge while our rhythm section does some comping stuff. And this is, I call it a hinge because we're hinging around the tonic. You might also know it as a Remington. But we're doing this just really to get the winds warming up, putting good air through their horns, listening to each other, focusing on tone quality, intonation, and giving our rhythm section a chance to also dig into some of their own skills. Then on the second page, we have our full ensemble articulation. Again, really encourage people to be singing these articulations the first time, getting the winds to internalize that style and that nuance, and then trying to mimic that as they play. I got forte piano crescendos on the long notes, wanting to give them drive and direction, and getting kids to try to do this to long notes as kind of a default, unless otherwise decided by the director's discretion, but getting them to focus on giving notes and phrases direction. And so they're playing this. Rhythm section continuing to work on comping. We have our theory section for everyone, and we're just trying to number scales, getting students used to a number-based theory approach where we're going to apply a number to the parts of the scale and use those numbers for a multitude of things both in theory and our transcription. So they have concert key of F and C, and then their key is in parentheses, so they know exactly what scale to be transposing to for themselves. And they're going to fill those in here in this table, and making sure that they get this correctly all the way up to 9, exposing them a little bit to some extensions, getting them to realize what they need to do when they get beyond 8. Here, -7 gets us what our lower number would be. And it's also a great warm-up to go up the scale to 9 and back down. Then we have our transcription, and this one is just the head or melody to C-Jam Blues. Nothing overly difficult, but just a great entry level to listening. We want the students to listen a number of times through to the melody, and then have them be able to sing it, and then try to figure it out on their instrument. This is a great kind of entry point for getting them excited about transcription. It's not overly difficult, but they do get to go through the process. This is in C, as the title suggests. So they're going to use their C scale and the notes that they transcribe to put this into numbers. And numbers are great to use because now we can put this in any key we want. We can use this to analyze it against chords. It's really helpful. So they'll now have this in numbers, and then now we can put it in the key of F. How many other keys can they put this transcription into? Down here, we're going to be soloing over an F blues, so getting them used to this form, but maybe not in the key of C. F tends to be a little bit better as a starting point, and they'll use the C-Jam Blues transcription if they like. For students, it can be really intimidating to solo, and so giving them something simple. Hey, take a whole chorus over the C-Jam Blues melody and just change up the rhythm. You can get a lot of mileage over things like that, getting them to get used to trying to create ideas and mutate some of the licks and things that they learn. And it's also a great chance for everybody to take a solo in the class, kind of stand up one chorus, and everybody do that in a judgment-free zone and work on getting used to improvisation. And they have the concert key and then their own key chords just for their reference and a play-along track. And now we'll look at the piano. Same stuff here. Piano is going to start with 2-note voicing, so we're focusing on the 3rd and 7th, as those are really the important notes of those chords. and getting them to experience how they move to the next closest note, keeping common tones, etc. And this is a good starting point for them on how to comp chords. Then while the winds are doing their articulation, the rhythm section is going to start by playing the melody so that the winds can sing along while hearing that. And then they're going to do some comping behind the melody on the second time. They've got the same thirds and sevenths that we've been comping with in our previous exercise, but now we give them a little bit of a rhythm. And this is just getting them into the idea of complementing what they hear the melody play and interjecting in some of those spaces. And so it's a simple rhythm, but it fits nicely in the space that the winds are leaving. There's also their part for theory and their transcription. And then down here, we want to, if we can, get them used to reading chord changes. And so we give them the thirds and sevenths for every chord. Can they comp those themselves? For the guitar, we have pretty much the same stuff. I go into a little bit more detail because guitar gets tricky. Where can we put the thirds and sevenths and on the fretboard? There's different preferences. I generally like to have the kids start in the middle strings, but there's other places to do that. And so just looking like if these are the same notes that the piano had, where can you put them on the guitar? And so we go into that. I'll have a lot of guitar-specific videos to have the kids check out because this is probably one of the trickier instruments to really fit into the jazz band appropriately. And then the guitar is doing the same thing that the piano was, melody and comping. Same theory, same transcription, and same idea behind the solos. Our bass, same thing. First thing we want the bass player doing is walking quarter notes. Solid, in-time quarter notes with the ride cymbal of the drummer just on roots. I put in here, eye contact with the drummer can be very helpful to keep time. Just focusing on roots and time. And that's really where they need to start. And then they go and continue to do the same thing on this full ensemble. So they have two choruses. Do a slight little different rhythmic twist at the end, but otherwise we're focusing on these quarter notes. Halfway through, we switch over to 1 and 5, and I make a note about the 1 string 2 frets to get to the 5th, and there's a great bass video for that as well. Same numbering, same transcription. Soloing, we want them to try to walk a bass line. Certainly with roots, they can handle that. And then if they can add the 5, that is great as well. And our drum set, same things up here. We're working on those quarter notes, just like our bass player was doing, and we want them doing that together, making sure that hi-hat is nice and crisp, and trying to just expose the drummers to all the wacky notation that they're going to see along their way as a jazz drum set player. And so here we have just some basic quarter note hi-hat notation and getting them, oh, here's slashes, and some of the ambiguity that they're going to see as a drummer with some of their music. And then on the ensemble, we give them a little bit more information. And so this has the melody of the winds. And what we want the drummer focusing on is these setup of the and of four. It's why the wind players have it so much. And this and four and is a great rhythm. There's a drum video on this for them to watch, but getting them to try to set up these ands of fours a little bit methodically at first so that it becomes natural, and then they can kind of add their own twist to things as they go. Trying to put these on different places of the kit is also great as well. They get to do some theory and transcription because I want our drummers to be melodically intelligent musicians. And then they're just working on playing time, good time behind the soloists. So that is the overview for everybody on set 1.